What if the loudest thing you ever said was your silence? The moment you stopped explaining yourself, stopped proving your worth, stopped chasing what was never meant to stay, something inside you shifted. You felt it, didn't you? That quiet strength, that calm that used to feel like emptiness, now feels like control. Because silence isn't weakness, it's not surrender, it's power, quiet, disciplined power. When you stopped reacting, they lost their grip. When you stopped arguing, they lost their control. And when you finally went silent, that's when they realized they no longer had access to your peace. They prepared for your anger. They prepared for your words, your explanations, your defenses. But they never prepared for your absence. Silence shakes people in ways shouting never could, because it forces them to face the truth, not about you, but about themselves. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. That's what silence is, not avoidance, not punishment, but proof that your peace is no longer for sale. It's a decision, a boundary, a turning point. Today, I'll share with you 7 lessons. Lessons that reveal how silence flips the balance, exposes what's fake, heals what's broken, and rebuilds the unshakable strength within you. But before we begin, I want you to make a choice, right now. A choice to rise above noise. Type this in the comments and claim it. My silence speaks louder than their noise. Say it with conviction, because from this moment on, your silence will not be misunderstood. It will be felt. Now, let's begin. Lesson 1. Silence cuts the strings of control. The people who try to control you don't feed on your silence. They feed on your reaction. Every argument you enter, every defense you give, every time you explain yourself to someone who has already made up their mind, you hand them your energy like currency. They don't want peace. They want control. They want to see you flinch, defend, justify, because that tells them they still matter, they still have a hold. But the day you go quiet, everything shifts. Suddenly, their favorite game ends. No more back and forth, no more emotional fuel, no more access to the power they use to pull from your reactions. And here's what happens next. They panic. They start wondering why you're calm. They replay the last conversation, searching for clues. They imagine what you're thinking, what you're planning, because your silence has turned their certainty into chaos. That's what control really is. Not shouting, not proving, not explaining. It's stillness. It's watching the storm, but refusing to step into it. You're not running away. You're walking away with dignity. You're reclaiming what's yours, your mind, your emotions, your peace. And the moment you stop responding, they realize something they were never prepared to face. You no longer play their game. You've stepped off their board entirely. Silence doesn't mean they've won. It means you've stopped letting them win. So the next time someone tries to drag you into chaos, pause, breathe, and remember this truth. Your peace is not up for debate. Not everyone deserves your words. Not everyone earns your reaction. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say absolutely nothing. Because your silence isn't weakness, it's self-respect. It's self-control, it's power in its purest form. Drop this truth in the comments and claim it for yourself. My silence protects my peace. Lesson 2. Silence makes you rare. There comes a point in life when you realize not everyone deserves access to you. You've spent years giving your time, your energy, your attention to people who only noticed you when you were loud. You answered every message, explained every feeling, showed up every time they needed you, and still they treated your presence like it was ordinary. But the truth is, it wasn't. You weren't ordinary. You were just available. And what's always available is always taken for granted. When you go quiet, When you step back and stop chasing validation, your silence creates space. And in that space, people begin to notice what they lost. Suddenly, your absence echoes louder than your presence ever did. They start to replay your kindness. They revisit old conversations. They scroll through messages they ignored. And for the first time, they see what was always there: your value. Because silence does something words can't. It builds mystery. It turns what was once easy into exclusive. People chase what they can't predict. They respect what they can't easily reach. And when your attention stops being automatic, your worth multiplies. Silence doesn't mean you've stopped caring. It means you finally started caring about yourself. You're not being distant. You're being disciplined. You're no longer handing out your energy like it's free. Because it's not. Your attention is currency, your peace is gold, and your silence, that's the vault that protects it. So from this moment on, stop giving constant access to people who only show up when it's convenient. Make them earn your presence. Make them rise to your level. Because what's rare is respected, what's silent is powerful, and what's controlled cannot be replaced. Say it with me and claim it right now. My silence raises my worth. Every time you stay quiet instead of explaining yourself, every time you hold your energy instead of giving it away, your value climbs higher. Remember, diamonds don't scream to be seen. They shine in silence. Lesson 3. Silence proves you don't need them. True strength isn't shown by how hard you chase. It's shown by how gracefully you can walk away. There's a quiet kind of confidence that comes when you stop explaining yourself. Stop seeking validation. Stop trying to convince people to see your worth. You start to realize your value doesn't decrease when they stop noticing. It multiplies the moment you stop needing them to notice. They expected you to fall apart. They thought your world would collapse without their attention, their approval, their presence. But instead, you stood still. You breathed. You healed. You started rebuilding yourself from the inside out. And that's what shook them the most. Because silence, real, intentional silence, is the language of someone who knows they are enough. You didn't chase. You didn't beg. You didn't announce your growth. You just grew. And that quiet glow they see now, that peace on your face, that calm in your energy, it's not emptiness, it's freedom. You've stopped tying your happiness to people who can leave. You've stopped giving your peace to people who never earned it. You've learned something most never do, that the one who doesn't need is always stronger than the one who clings. Because the moment you stop needing their approval, you gain something far more powerful: self-approval. That's when you stop breaking down and start leveling up. That's when silence stops feeling like loss and starts feeling like liberation. You no longer wait for a text. You no longer check if they've noticed. You no longer shrink yourself to fit their comfort. Because you know now, you don't need them to feel whole. You already are. And the peace you found in silence is the kind of peace no one can give you and no one can take away. Say it out loud. Own it. My silence shows I'm enough. Because you are. You always were. You just needed silence to remember it. Lesson 4. Silence builds respect. Respect isn't earned by shouting louder. It's earned by standing calmer. The one who can stay composed when everyone else expects chaos commands the room without saying a word. Because silence isn't weakness. It's composure. It's the moment you say, I will not lower my energy to match your noise. People expect reactions. They crave them. They want you to argue, to explain, to prove your point. But when you don't take the bait, when you stay silent, they feel something they didn't expect: respect. You teach them a lesson without speaking, that your peace is not public property, that your emotions are not theirs to play with. Silence says, my time is valuable. Silence says, my energy is limited. Silence says, you no longer have access to my mind. And that earns more respect than any speech ever could. Because when you refuse to explain yourself to people who never listened, you show them something powerful, that your attention is a privilege, not a right. People respect boundaries they can't cross, and your silence, that's the line. The more you defend yourself, the smaller you look to those who only wanted to see you lose control. But when you stay quiet, calm, unbothered, they have no power left to pull from. They may not admit it out loud, but deep down they start to see you differently. Not as someone weak, not as someone easy to provoke, but as someone who commands dignity without raising their voice. That's what silence does. It forces people to meet you on your level, or leave. And both outcomes are peace. So, the next time someone tries to draw you into chaos, smile. Breathe. Stay silent. Let your calmness do what words never could. Because your silence doesn't just protect your peace. It demands their respect. Affirmation. My silence earns respect they never gave me. Lesson 5. Silence heals what noise couldn't. Sometimes, silence isn't about them. It's about you. You've spent so much time trying to explain yourself, trying to fix things, to be understood, to be heard. And in all that noise, you lost the sound of your own soul. Silence is where you find it again. When you finally step back, when you stop reacting and start reflecting, you give your mind space to breathe. You give your heart room to heal. That quiet you were once afraid of, that's not emptiness, that's peace coming home. In silence, the voices that once confused you start to fade. The pain that once consumed you begins to soften. You start to hear the voice that matters most, your own. You remember who you were before they broke your spirit, before you gave away your worth, before you started begging for understanding from people who never wanted to understand. Healing doesn't happen in arguments. It doesn't happen in trying to prove your side or justify your heart. Healing happens in quiet rebuilding, in long walks alone, in moments when you breathe without needing to respond. Silence isn't the absence of sound. It's the presence of clarity. Every minute you spend in silence is a minute your soul repairs itself. Your heart learns to beat on its own again. Your mind learns that peace doesn't come from being right. It comes from being free. So stop chasing closure in noise. Stop reopening wounds with words. Close your eyes. Breathe. Let the quiet do its work. Because what the noise broke, silence will rebuild. What chaos destroyed, silence will restore. Let your silence be your medicine. Let it heal you, strengthen you, and remind you of your power. You don't need anyone to hear your story right now. You just need to listen to yourself. Say this with me, slowly, like a promise to your soul. My silence is my recovery. And every day you stay calm instead of reacting. Every day you choose peace over proving. You're healing. You're rising. You're coming home to yourself. Lesson 6. Silence forces them to face themselves. Your silence becomes their mirror. Every ignored call, every message that never gets a reply, every time they look at their phone and see nothing, they're forced to sit in the silence they created. See, people can argue with your words, they can twist your sentences, they can talk over your truth, but they can't fight silence. They can't control what it makes them feel. Silence has a way of echoing, not in the room, but in the mind. It lingers. It whispers when they least expect it. It shows up when the noise around them dies down, when they're alone with their thoughts. That's when it hits. The weight of what they said, the memory of how they acted, The realization that your absence is louder than your presence ever was. They start to replay everything. The last conversation, the last look on your face, the moment they took your patience for granted. And suddenly, your silence becomes the lesson their ego refused to learn. This isn't revenge. You're not trying to hurt them. You're not punishing them. You're simply holding up a mirror that reflects who they really were when they thought you'd never walk away. A mirror that forces them to confront the truth, that you were never the problem. Their behavior was. And that truth cuts deeper than anger ever could, because anger gives them something to fight against. Silence gives them nothing except themselves. Silence removes the distraction of blame. It leaves them alone with the reality they built. They start to feel the emptiness they left behind, the space where your presence used to bring warmth, now filled with their own regret. That's what silence does. It doesn't scream, it doesn't beg, it doesn't prove, it just waits quietly while the truth does its work. And in time they realize your silence wasn't coldness, it was clarity. It wasn't pride, it was peace. You didn't disappear to hurt them, you disappeared to heal yourself. And the byproduct of that healing is the reflection they can no longer run from. Remember this, you don't have to explain their lesson for them to learn it. You just have to stop speaking it for them. Write this down and let it sink in. My silence makes them face the truth. Because the truth always returns in silence, and it always hits harder than anger ever will. Lesson 7. Silence means you've chosen yourself. The loudest declaration of strength isn't shouting, "I'm done." It's walking away quietly and meaning it. Because silence isn't about revenge, it's about respect. Not for them, but for yourself. You stopped begging for love. You stopped asking to be seen. You stopped trying to prove your worth to people who were blind to it. And in that quiet moment, when you chose yourself over their approval, something inside you shifted forever. That's not ego, that's self-respect. That's self-mastery, that's Stoicism in motion. Because Stoicism isn't about being cold or emotionless. It's about knowing what deserves your energy and what doesn't. It's about realizing that peace isn't something you beg for, it's something you build. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." You took that wisdom to heart. You stopped debating your worth and started embodying it. That's what silence is. It's your becoming. The person you're becoming doesn't need to chase closure. They are the closure. The person you're becoming doesn't need to explain their boundaries. They are the boundary. The person you're becoming no longer needs to say, "I deserve better," because they're already living like it. Your silence speaks louder than your defense ever could. It says, "I'm not angry. I'm aligned. I'm not distant. I'm disciplined. I'm not cold, I'm calm." When you finally choose yourself, you stop chasing what's beneath you and start attracting what matches you. That's the power of silence. It filters the world. It removes what drains you and reveals what deserves you. Every moment you stay silent instead of reacting, you're building a stronger version of yourself, one that moves with purpose, not pain. You don't need to prove your worth anymore. You live it. You don't need to demand respect. You embody it. You don't need to say you've changed. Your silence says it for you, because silence is not absence, it's evolution. It's not retreat, it's return. Return to yourself. Return to peace. Return to power. And once you reach that place, you'll never lower yourself again to be understood. Say this slowly, like a vow, not to them, but to yourself. My silence is my power, and I will never give it away. Because the moment you chose silence, you chose yourself. And that is the highest form of strength there is. Every time you choose silence instead of chaos, you grow stronger. Every time you hold your peace when others try to steal it, you rise higher. Because silence isn't about ignoring the world, it's about mastering yourself. It's the moment you realize that peace is more powerful than reaction. That calm is not weakness, it's control. That stillness doesn't mean you've given up. It means you've leveled up. You don't need to announce your growth anymore. You don't need to explain your decisions. Your silence says everything your words never could. It says, I'm no longer available for disrespect. I'm no longer addicted to reaction. I choose peace over performance. From this day forward, let your calmness be your comeback. Let your silence speak your worth. Walk through life like still water, deep, steady, and unbothered by the noise above the surface. Because true power doesn't shout. It moves quietly. The most unstoppable energy in this world is a soul that no longer reacts to what doesn't deserve it. You've learned that silence heals, it protects, it commands respect, but most of all, it transforms. So the next time someone tests your peace, remember, you don't owe them your words. You owe yourself your stillness. And that's what Stoicism is all about. Mastering your inner world when the outer world loses control. If this message woke something inside you, if it reminded you of who you really are beneath all the noise, then don't keep it to yourself. Like this video. Share it with someone who's ready to remember their strength. Because silence isn't weakness, it's dominance, it's presence, it's power. And the moment you understand that, you'll never waste another word proving yourself to anyone again. Remember, you are calm. You are controlled. You are becoming everything they said you couldn't be, simply by saying nothing at all.